Okay guys, today's video will be a little bit of a detour from the learning about the pantheon and such stuff. It's a little bit of a topic that will be brought up quite a bit here and there with the teachings of Massicism, because we value its balance and we value the studies of this, why science and magic belong in the same story. In the last video, you might have heard me said that science should not study religion or magic. However, though, within this video, I'll explain why Massicism says it can coexist within the same community together and such stuff. How can this be a thing in a community most will think that a community that values faith and the arcanic teachings would not allow science in it. However, we know that it is needed, as the arcanic is not always on point or usually reliable such. And no, you don't need to believe in the arcanic for it to be real, as it exists with its own flow of particular energy in it. As beings of the flame, which is us, we can access that flow and use it to allow the arcanic flow into our lives as individuals, as it allows us to affect things on a more spiritual path than a more mundane or physical path. Thus, science allows us to study study the effects of the more mundane and non-supernatural things. The reason why it is more forward into that sense. However, the much more simple reason is that not everything has to be occultic or spiritualism or religious for that matter, and not everything is mundane or rational either as well. The reason why we have a focus on balance why we value the balance because not everything is rational, not everything is explainable, and lots of things will never make sense and the arcanic is magical, and religious folklore and all of that is usually suitable for those type of things because it gives special meaning and special explanations to certain things and a more logic and reason and understandable teachings in education about the scientific studies and fields is needed so Massicism will value it to be balanced and not to be mushed into one utterly confusing ball. Should they be mixed into one? If yes or no, then why? Simple reason, no, in the answer, and the reason for it is quite simple. Is because if either side was to be proven wrong, it will strip away hope, worth, faith, morals, ideas, creativity, and kindness, but mainly community might fall apart in it. How? Just imagine a world where there are no fairy tales, no religions at all, no ancient stories, no art, no community, no music, no creativity or hope, just pure logic and reason and numbers on how to do things and data. As such, where everyone looks, thinks, acts, does, teaches the fields of science and academics done that. So there will be more focus on this world will be more focused on complete and utter logic and rationality done that, such that there will be no room for thinking outside the box and that. No room for fantasy, no room for storytelling or make-believe. This will be a world that may look and sound normal at first, but once you look deeper, you would see that it has bleak and little passion done at no or some art relaxing form of music, but no styles, just one genre. Simple but very by the numbers society. Long debates about almost everything, and maybe even no culture. Why? Because everyone is non-religious and your full typical basic atheist. The rude, very, very, very rude kind. And some of you might know what I'm talking about. Because you do get very rude ones. The reverse version, where there's no science, no logic, is even worse. As such, no real logic thinking, no established medical foundation to stop all ridiculous toxins or tonics from being sold, just like before 1847 in Philadelphia when the AMA that was made and that and such stuff. There'll be no reason done that everything will be made up and be even way harder now than it is now to tell what can be real, what is fake, because there's no foundation to actually go and fact check and do research on the information that you're presented because it's all woo and that which will be a very chaotic world. Which will also bring constant war between different religions, fear and unknown groups, and moral ethics will not be checked or stopped. So balance is very much key, because science has an evil and dark side, just as how religion or magic which is religion and magic is two separate things. But I place them together because usually the majority of people that always like to combine the magic and religion go hand in hand. Which if you practice magic, you can be non-religious. It's a practice. It's not a religion. Why is it that science is mainstream now but wasn't always around? Most people will never see this as a fact, but the organic gave way and birthed the first few very, very earliest forms of science and the fields of study. As those who would practice it will be able to understand science of today. I'm talking about not the new age spiritualism talking about the old OG kind of organic practices and such stuff, like your ancient technique, pre modern day religions practitioners they will definitely be able to understand if you explain to them and such the words, because once they get past the social norms that we have to understand. It was an art that used precise formulas and high-end calculations and measurements. However, before Sir Isaac Newton, they had a different way of doing their math, done it, and all their calculations. Though most fields of today can very much own up and think some form of magical practice making it real. Done it. Here are a few examples. Done it. Alchemy and alchemists that gave way for pharmacy and chemistry. That if you ever seen an alchemy set that and place it right next to a chemistry set, the two have very lots of similarities. As they mixed up herbs and certain remedies to heal or to treat stuff or to study chemical reactions. Potions and certain chemistry tonics are the same, only now we use more complex words and terms for it now than back then, thousands of years ago. They made it simple but important. It was around after maybe around the 16th century and that when most alchemistic knowledge kind of loses a bit of its touch, and that I will place the info here that about when it started losing its popularity and that on screen. Astrology opened the way for modern day astronomy and astrophysics and that as ancient world is seen to be proven better at keeping track of nearby celestial bodies than most of us today. There were a lot of people back then that knew how to keep track of it very well and such. Herbal magic was the medicine back then, as the witches and traditional healers were able to help even with physical wounds. They cured the illness fully, instead of just many treating the symptoms. Numerology and sacred geometry was the ancient version of every child's high school nightmare, but it was the path of modern day mathematics, the normal maths and advanced maths. If you're South African and you took in the class advanced maths, you'll know the big bloody issue with like solving of acts and that and such. The numerology and sacred geometry were the normal maths and advanced maths back then. And in a way it still is sigil magic is basically used in everyday life as runes, glyphs are everywhere. They opened the path up for communication and the power of text and writing, as each symbol has a meaning behind it. Symbols are everywhere. Sigils are everywhere. Glyphs are everywhere. You can see them everywhere you look in your day-to-day life. And each symbol, logo, whatever, has a meaning behind it that if you see it, you know what it means. Necromancy and divination, a practice that many think is the most fake or the most taboo. Though this piqued the interest for archaeology, anatomy, and the earliest type of form for forensic sciences. It helped man understand disease, illness, corpses, and how to dispose and bury them in a safe way if they died of illness, and it contributed to lots of burial ceremonies and such stuff. So this practice kind of opened that path and such stuff for blood magic, done it. This opened the way for healing, vitality, and health assessment, done it. But mainly in a sense a political structure due to blood laws, pacts, governs initiation rites, and ceremonies. Why is it now separate from each other, done it? Why is magic and science no longer one? Various theories suggest different things, done it? As some say, the church wanted more power, thus they branded these practices demonic. So they wanted to stay on top, and so they, for power-wise and such, done that to help spread their religion, their teachings. They told everyone that these practices are evil and demonic, and you end up in hell and that. All that secret societies wanted to keep the knowledge to themselves. Some even blame the free masonry group and that and such for hoarding most of the knowledge and that and such. However, it may be the fact is now that science is its own thing now. The arcane is still its own thing, and that they can coexist together, but there must be a middle ground, and Massicism has that, as it acknowledges that science helps in the mundane and the arcane helps in the spiritual ways, and that for faith, hope, morals, and such. And that I'll leave you there with the words and sayings and that from some of the famous scientists and that and such. There'll be 5 of them done that if you study these things, or you read up about these things, that you recognize these sayings and that from these the greatest scientific minds done that and such and that. And I will see you in the next video. And that